Thanks, Garrett. So, commencement notices. So, the National Building Control Office is the reform of building control, education and training. That's why we're here today, is to give the CPD compliance and support. And that's to provide guidance to the industry and to building control and builders when they submit questions to support at NBCO.gov. Inspections, we actually coordinate and go out and train with inspectors as well. And some of our building control, senior building control people are actually coordinating and we're doing kind of joint inspections to train people in groups, and that's worked out very productively. And then we have our market surveillance of construction products and the BCMS, which provides for notices, certs, applications, certificates, building control, building register, and data for government and industry. Now, the BCMS is not building control. Building control is with the 31 local authorities who have the function for building control. The BCMS facilitates the administration of applications, notices, and certificates. So one of the regulatory considerations in the building construction, so you have your planning, you have your safety, your commencement notices fall in there, and you have other legislation, energy performance, market surveillance, you know. So what are the building control regulations? The building control regulations apply to new buildings, extensions, material alterations, and change of use of buildings. They promote observance of the building regulations by supplementary powers of inspection and enforcement given to the building control authorities, which are the 31 building control authorities. And the building control regulations regulate commencement notices and 7-day notices, fire safety certs, revised fire safety certs and regularization certs, disability access certs and revised disability access certs, maintenance of a register, fees. So all these applications, notices require a fee. The only certificate doesn't require a fee, and statutory register. And the fee is there, and it's part of the notice, and it's part of the validation process. So if you don't include the fee, it's probably going to be invalidated. Failure to submit a notice is an offence, and it will have serious consequences that cannot be regularised. It may result in difficulties for the designers, the people involved in the builder, and the owner who owns the property may not be able to sell the property down the line, or have to give away a reduced value. So do all developments require a commencement notice? So commencement notices are required for the following: direction of a building, material alteration or extensions to a building, material change of use of buildings, works in connection with the material alteration, excluding minor works, repair and renewal of a shop, office or industrial building. And commencement notice is not required for works or change of use, which are exempt development under the Planning Acts, and which a fire cert is not required, or a 7-day notice is submitted. So the question you need to ask yourself is, planning permission really is required for the works or the building? Is a fire cert required for the works or the building? And the important question is, does the works involve the second schedule of the building regulations, 8M? So if you answer yes to one of them questions, you need a commencement notice. So the application of Part 2, Article 7, and that's really the requirement where it's laid out on the requirement for a notice. The types of notices, and there's 4 types of notices, and they fall in under different legislations, but when you go to create your notice on the BCMS, that if you select the wrong notice type and submit it to the local authority and they invalidate it, you have to create the notice again. So it's important to understand what works and what notice is applicable to your works or new building. The obligation to give notice. So a person who intends to carry out any works or make a material change of use as regard to a building to which this part applies shall give to the Building Control Authority, whose functional area the works or buildings is or it will be situated, notice in writing of intention under these regulations, not less than 14 and not more than 28 days before the commencement of the works. And then there's commencement 8A is in relation to the 7-day notice. So it's clear there, that's a responsibility, and that's in there since 1990s, 30 years. So it's probably the first thing you should learn coming out of college is to get a notice in on a building. And when you go to site, is there planning permission? Is there a notice? Is there all this work? These are the questions that designers should be asking themselves if they're involved in the process. Who's doing this? The form of notice. And as John said earlier, the requirement for the notice doesn't mention planning, doesn't mention the DAC, it doesn't mention the fire cert. Such plans, calculations, specifications in particular, as is necessary to outline how the proposed works or building will comply with the requirements of the second schedule of building regulations, relevant to the works or building concerned, and including general arrangement drawings, including plans, sections thereof, a schedule of such plans, calculations, specifications, and particulars are currently designed or are to be prepared at a later date. So it's not that we want everything, but we need to make sure that you're able to get that building to a substantial thing. So if you haven't designed your loadings for your roof and your floors, how can you design your foundations? That's a simple thing and a requirement. And I put in a link there to the Law for Reform Commission Consolidated Building Regulations, so you can actually go and actually read that. And if you haven't read it, you should have read all these legislation around this as a designer and design certifier, owner, and a builder. The 7-day notice, and really it's the only real big difference there is that there's no granted fire cert for the works. You've seen this slide with Ronan as well, on what the type of each notice is and what information is required under each type of notice. You know? So for the notice without compliance topic, it's just a form of commencement notice. There's no requirement for general arrangement drawings, but they can be requested by the Building Control Authority to demonstrate compliance or seek clarification on the works or the description of works. And I suppose really, if you're in doubt of notices and the type of notices, contact your building controller or send an email to support at NBCO, and we'll be able to provide guidance. So compliance with the building regulations, design has the meaning assigned to it in the Act of 1990, and it includes the preparation of plans, particulars, drawings, specifications, calculations, and other expressions of purpose according to the construction, extension, alteration, repair or renewal concerned in the execution design, and will be constructed accordingly. The schedule of documents as per question 6 that Ronan went through, and review of plans, calculations and particulars to check for compliance with the second schedule of building regulations 8M. You have the online assessment and the supporting documents, the fee. So the basic requirements for plans, so properly dimensioned and using the SI units, metric units here in Ireland, feet and inches, we don't want them. All floor plans, elevations, sections, and associated details and specifications, calculations if they're required. Building control, construction drawings, not marked for planning purposes. You already did the planning drawings. You know, we don't want planning drawings. We want drawings to demonstrate compliance with the building regulations. Planning is a different legislation. Where works is to an existing property, clearly distinguish between the new and the old works. Outline the extension, make it clear. The details of the designers responsible for preparing the drawings, marked on the drawings. So this is the floor plan here, and the basic requirements is still the same no matter whether it's a circular house, round house, rectangular, hexagon, even the bathroom the toilet. If you want to put in a round toilet area in your thing, you still have to comply with the requirements of the technical guidance document. So the 750 by 1200 area, square rectangle, the height 2.1, the door and the corridor around that. And that's the requirements. Building regulations don't need to look at the design of the building from that point of view. They're looking from a point of view of compliance with the building regulations. And these are some of the sample things that you can actually show on the floor plans: the fire stopping, cavity barriers, fire alarms, bedroom windows or doors, etc. You know, vertical circulation. So if there's a 3-story house, you may outline the fire resistant walls in red, for example. The location of the radon sump and the outlet. You know, and then make sure when you're doing the elevations that it's not coming up and have to go around windows if there was a soil, passive stack to be put on at a later stage. Part M as well, the width of the corridors, stuff like that. It's not that onerous. It doesn't take that much time to do it, but it's your design. And the design certain, the builder's the building to your design. So if you have it correct, then it is the builder that you can say you didn't follow my plan. You know, other things that can be on the drawings as well: the landings, the guardings, you know, the bedrooms when you have them labeled. Even writing the bedroom on it is very good, because building control officers can say, well, that window, there's no window provided in that room. How are you going to provide means of escape? Part J, you may have locations of heat producing appliances inside the house. You may have the flues, oil boilers, gas boilers. You know, and if you have a gas boiler, you need a CO2 alarm. Where do you locate that? Your chimney system. You might be using a chimney system and then that means you have to have within the 5 meters of the corridor and in the room where the system electricity goes through. So elevations as well. So your finishes, how it complies with SR 325 if you're using a block and rendering, expansion joints, stuff like that. So it's not an exhaustive list, and you can develop it as a checklist as an assigned certifier or designer to take it further, to make sure that you have as much information on it, like the part C, the location of the radon sump and the outlet on the ground, the DPM or radon barrier, the SR21 material, the breakdown, and that is specified. You know, the ACD's junctions and that, have we numbered them? How are we in compliance with the ACDs? Do we need to get some of them thermal modeled? The U values of the walls, ceilings, roofs, etc. The windows, you know, the roof covering. You know, what are we putting on the roof? Is it a party wall then? Issue. Do I have to look for B9 compliance if it's a dwelling house for surface spread of flames? Is the roof vents in it? You know, is there a chimney? Do I have to consider the flashing details around the chimney, stuff like that? Cross-referencing with the details, you know, I identified all my key junctions on my ACDs and the plans and elevations? The details, construction details, design calculations. You know, this is an ACD that's on the thing, and it's just developed out that you can include the part A, the part C, the part D, part M, you know, in it, and develop it more as a designer. And if you're doing 50 of these houses, it would pay you to do it. So validation checklist overview. You know, are the drawings provided for building type of each building? So you go to the site layout, you get a site layout here. Is it referenced? Are they outlined? You know, how do I know that that house there is different from that house there? Or that, you know? So you make it easier for the building control person to actually understand what units and stuff like that. And when it comes to CCC, in which Michael Mansell will do later, is that you can put in the site location map again and show the units that relate to it. so they're easily identified. You know, are all plans and sections and elevations provided for each building? Are drawings marked for commencement or construction purposes, not for planning? Are the details of the designers responsible? Are drawings school and the description says it's community centre? Or even worse, a picture of a cat. So reasons for revised information, like validation, and it's a €30 fee, and if you're not putting it in right, you're costing the state money and time that a building control officer can actually go out on site to inspect, instead of telling you that your application is not in accordance with Article 9 and you need to submit revised information. Drawings not labelled construction drawings. The drawings do not demonstrate compliance with the second schedule of building regulations, 8M. Disclaimers on the drawings. Oh, I'm not responsible for building regulations. The builder is. You're the designer. You prepared the drawings. And then you want to pass the responsibility on to someone else. Drawings do not show the responsibility. So these are examples of disclaimers and stuff that we've seen on drawings. And these all go back, and the architect or the engineer or the building surveyor or the other design professionals that submit notices have to spend hours taking this information off and uploading the drawings, and then it goes back to the building control officer to revalidate. So drawings do not demonstrate compliance with the building regulations or are insufficient to support the document provided. No information about the structure or fabric demonstrating how the building is to be constructed. You get a blank drawing like this. Huh? No notes, no specifications. No design, really, if you want to put it like that. Because it's a plan. Building extensions not show the whole of the building, so they only put in the wee extension. They don't put in the rest of the building. So there may be other issues on the site layout and boundary issues and adjoining buildings that may be considered as part of the building regulations. You know? Builder gets that in the morning and goes out to build that. He's the designer. So he needs to go back to the architect and say, hold on a minute, I'm not the designer. You need to provide information like that so I can build this drawing. Building control need to say, no, that's not a building control drawing. Check the schedule of documents when you see this. The building is designed. It's not designed. It doesn't show compliance with the building regulations. So I outline the site maps in red. Existing buildings show existing and proposed works, show floor areas of proposed works in existing areas. And these are good outlining, a good example, showing the new works, whether it's change of use, the areas. And that's good to give to a building control officer. He can go out to site and he knows what he's actually going out to inspect. Drawings not required. We get a lot of drawings put in that's not required. It's like, we just put it up because it's there, we have it. Demolition drawings. Demolition doesn't fall in on the building control because Part 8M doesn't apply to it. Landscape drawings. Unless the landscape drawing is in the house and creating a fire hazard, it's not a building regulation. Site drainage works, so that's the main foul and surface water drain. You're just showing that it's connected to it. They don't need to be uploaded. Sewer details, manhole details for the main thing. And these are actually in the BCMS that people have actually went and uploaded. Furniture drawings that are not fixed in the building are not required. Site boundary details, not part of building control. They're planning. So the schedule of drawings to be submitted and as built, and these notes there are not submitted with the CN, not requested by the Building Control Authority, and won't be submitted on updates. You know, so check that you're getting a proper list on the updates. You know, as the designers, you know, the more design information you have, the better the construction. Remember, the responsibility of complying with the law rests with the owners, designers, and design certifiers and builders, and validation is a statutory process for the local authorities' notice applications, and validation is solely based on the assumption that the facts stated in the former notice, application, certificates, or declaration and attached statutory reporting thing. So it's like, I forgot to send in the notice, or I'll send it in tomorrow. We've already started works. The building control officer probably won't call it. But if the building control officer calls out, that notice will be invalidated. And you may have to undo all the works that you've already done. And you carry the cost. And then there's a blame game on site. So prosecution and enforcement carry costs, and building control authorities are not planning, roads, water, or waste authorities. We only deal with building control. A valid commencement notice in itself doesn't mean that you have legal entitlement to commence work or the building. You may have other requirements. You may not have planning, because you can get a commencement notice without planning. And the onus on the owner, builder, and designer, assign certifier to comply with the law. Section 6, where a certificate of compliance or notice to which Section 2K relates is submitted to a building control authority, the building control authority shall not be under any duty to any person. Building control authorities have a big exemption. They're not responsible for your failures to comply with building control. So owners, builders, and designers are responsible for compliance, and they have been since 1990. These are a little checklist that once you get to pass your validation and get your thing, you can do a checklist and a desktop study on the drawings. A technical assessment is required in the code of practice, and you may request a section 11 based on that. So I don't know if you know about Louis Kahn. He was a famous American architect. Died when he died. He was about $500,000 in debt, so I don't know if it's a great career, but a very good attention to detail. And he told his students one time, a brick wants to be something. It aspires. Even a common ordinary brick wants to be something more than what it is. It wants to be something better than what it is. And the thing was to say that the brick, when you build it into a building, it's the building that you wanted and the function that you're designing wanted out of it. So designers, let your plans inspire you too and be something you want them to be. Thank you.